Eddie, great to see you. You're a man who survives on little sleep. What's keeping you up this week?
Well, it's actually probably been the best sleep I've had this week. Up until then, it's been, I've been in pre-season mode. We've been doing a lot of work with the players, but we've settled down to a test match prep this week. Feel like the team's starting to come together. We've still got a few injury concerns and still finding the bits and pieces of our game to come together. But we've got Georgia on Saturday, and I think we're ready to go.
How much do you add this week, or is it just about the spit and polish?
Yeah, no, one of the things I've learned about World Cup preps is keep it simple. You do all your hard work in pre-season, and then now you want to just make sure you're concentrating on the things that are really important. I always remember a story of South Africa in 2007. We were going to play Fiji in the quarterfinal, and Jake White wanted to do extra mauling, and I remember John Smith came up to me and said, "We don't need to do anything extra now. We know what we've got to do." And so that's always stuck with me, that you just go, once you get in the World Cup, you know what you're good at, keep doing it and back yourself to do it better.
How much can you lean on your experience of 4 World Cups, obviously working with Jake White, 2003, your big win with with Japan over the Box in 2015 and then England. What does that do for you at this point in time?
Well, I think it just helps you give a realistic picture of where you are and what you need to do, and also understand the ebbs and flows of the tournament. Like, just for instance, the first week of the tournament, everyone's excited. You're in a new country, it's buzzing, everyone in your squad's excited. Second week, you've either had a win or a loss, and generally it's a win. And then you've got to keep the blokes outside the 23, really motivate. You get to the third week, you're either playing for a quarterfinal or you're playing against a team who's desperate to make the quarterfinal. So that's a big game for you. And then the fourth week is, don't look too far ahead, because you know you're probably in the quarterfinal there, but you can get unstuck if you look too far ahead. So I think just understanding the nuances of the flow of the tournament definitely helps when you've been in it a few times.
How much have you had to talk with Carter Gordon? Because it's been a bit of a crash course in Test rugby the last couple of months. Had some highs, a few lows with the goal kicking. What have you been saying to him to get him right for this method of event?
Yeah, not a lot, mate. It's just, reassuring him that we've selected him because we think he's the best 10 in Australia. We went out of our way to select him. We brought him through slowly, had Quaid there to mentor him at the start of the Rugby Championship. Then we felt he needed to be given his freedom to play, and he's going to have his ups and downs. Again, I just look at Richie Mwanga. It took him about 50 caps to be a really stable 10 at Test level, because it's such a difficult position. And we're trying to just make sure we give him the opportunity to conduct the team and not have too much responsibility about everything we do. And that's one of the reasons we've changed the team a little bit this week, to bring Dono in to do the goal kicking for him.
The youth's been a big shift for you in the last few weeks. Clearly that's happened, and you've needed to change the team up. But what kind of atmosphere does that create around the group?
Oh, we're just full of energy, mate. I think it's brilliant. It's the next generation of Australian rugby. Australia needs new heroes, and these young guys have got the opportunity to do it. We've got some really good experienced players around in Slips and Nick White and Skelts to a degree. Tupou now, I think he's our third most experienced player. So those guys have got a responsibility to show the young guys what to do. But then you've got these young guys, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't know. So they rip in the training. They're loving every minute of being in France, and it's just a joy to see them work so hard.
You said today that 10 Yellow could possibly be the best tight end pride in the world. What does he need to get into his game to reach that stage?
Oh, it's just consistency, mate. Scrummaging well all the time. He has the occasional loose scrum. Getting his hands on the ball a little bit more when we're in attack, so he carries, because he is the most dynamic carrier in the world.
What about then some players in your squad then? You mentioned the point, there's clearly probably the not the breakout star, the established star in this World Cup. Who's in your squad that's going to announce themselves during this tournament?
Oh, look, I think there's a few, mate. We just spoke about Tupou, Bell, a young guy, hasn't played much Test rugby, come back from a second serious injury, now in his fourth or fifth game back, just starting to hit his straps. Tom Hooper at 6. The first game of the Rugby Championship, he could barely make a tackle. He was so far off the pace. And, he plays in Dunedin against New Zealand and he's hammering him around the ruck. And he's only just starting to understand the player he can be. Fraser McWright, and for Australia, 7's always been a position where when we're strong, the 7's a bit of an iconic play for us. And we've had to talk to him about his game and change his game a little bit, and he's really responded well to it. And then you put Valentine in there at 8. He's the oldest guy at 25. He's just starting his Test career, and he can be one of the most dominant number 8s in the world. So that's just the pack for starters.
Eddie, a couple of blokes called you a traitor last year in the SCG, and we saw the reaction. How much did that hurt at the time? And on the flip side, what does it mean now to be back as coach of the Wallabies again?
Well, it didn't really hurt, mate, because we'd won. But I thought I'd make a point of it because the bloke was out of order and he was drunk and he was being stupid. And just because he thought he was a member of the Sydney Cricket Ground, he'd get away with it. So I made a bit of a point about it. And probably at the back of my mind, I always felt I was going to come back at some stage to coach Australia. I don't know why, but I always felt it was there. And, I didn't want people to think that I would take that lying down, and I think that's probably the Australian part of me, out of the generation I'm out of. You stood up for yourself, you didn't take any rubbish, and if someone came at you, went back. And I want this, and I want our Australian team to play like that. That's how we want to play.
You see it in the group you've got?
Well, I think they've got the potential to do it, mate. We haven't been able to do it yet, but I think we've got the potential to do it. And even, the signs against France where they're probably at their best. We were still pre-season training for that game, so we could have easily fallen away at the end of that game, but we hung in there, and we've got to do that more.
And finally, just a couple. You mentioned the UFC coach you brought in out there in Japan. Who was that, and what did you do with him?
Yeah, it was I've forgotten his name now. Well, he was a Japanese guy. He was 100 Ks, and he fought right at the top level of UFC. And he just focused on changing their body height quickly from high to low and basically being able to attack the knees of the South African players. We've had a really lucky change in our coaching staff, bring Jason Riles coming in. If you think about his pedigree, he's the most sought after NRL coach. And we've got him coming in. He's really added to the attack. We were sorry to lose Brad because he was a good guy and a good coach. But Jason's really come in and added something a little bit different to us.
And finally, Eddie, there's been a lot of talk that rugby has been in the doldrums in Australia for a while. I've lived and breathed it for the last 10 years. What's your message to the Australian people on the eve of kick-off here in France?
Oh, we're about to start a cycle, mate. So sit on the edge of your seats, have a beer and enjoy the ride.